It went, I mean, about how I thought it would go if things went bad, especially under the conditions when it started to snow. I thought this is going to be a tough game for the San Francisco 49ers to go into Buffalo and miraculously pull out a win. I thought the only way they could is if Buffalo made the kind of mistakes the San Francisco 49ers did, fumbling the football, slipping and sliding, uncharacteristic. Josh Allen maybe throwing an interception or two, an errant pass. But unfortunately, the San Francisco 49ers just could not pull it together. And it was bad. It was everything that could go wrong. Kyle Juszczyk, doesn't fumble the ball very much at all. It was good play call by Kyle Shanahan. He gets there, you think, hey, this touchdown is going to kind of get us back on track. He fumbles the football. Deebo Samuel just trying to make a play on special teams. Obviously, kickoff return and had two huge returns in the game, trying to spark this team, trying to spark this offense, and just give this team some life. Fumbles the football. They're unable to recover it. Brock can't get a touchdown pass, can't get a grip of the football, empty hand forward, fumble late in the game, and that was just a dagger. It just never looked like they were right. You see uncharacteristic things throughout the game. George Kittle dropping a pass on a screenplay that likely could have probably had some life, but it was obviously tough conditions. Fred Warner goes out early in the game to get an IV's cramping. It's the first quarter of the ball game. Just uncharacteristic things that you don't expect to see from this team, and you frankly have never seen from this team, this San Francisco 49ers team, blown out by 25-plus points, back-to-back games. The Green Bay one was not really explainable. This one, you can kind of understand the conditions got to a team from California and they got behind the eight ball and they just couldn't find their way. It wasn't like Josh Allen did anything incredibly special. He was a victim of the conditions as well. 13 for 17, 148 yards, but the two touchdowns, one of them being to himself, a really, really actually incredible play. He completes a slant route behind Amari Cooper, who catches it with one hand. It's kind of in the grip of the defender. He laterals it back to Josh Allen, who continues throughout the play. And it was just a story of the way the game went for the San Francisco 49ers. Like, even when they get a stop, they didn't get a stop. James Cook has a huge run. I think it was 67 yards or 64 yards early in the game where, the safety, Jair Brown, takes a bad angle. He gets out the gate and nobody's catching anybody in this kind of weather. Everybody's legs are frozen, everybody's feet are frozen. It feel like you're running on stilts out there. So it was a great play from him. But yeah, it's just a sad game if you're a San Francisco 49ers fan. Not a ton of positives you can take from it. Obviously the division is still a tight race, and maybe they can make a run and beat some of these teams late and beat the Rams and beat the Cardinals and find a way to make it competitive down the stretch, but they definitely don't control their own destiny anymore, and that's the frustrating part. Even if Nicholas John Bosa returns and Trent Williams returns and all that, it may be too little too late. Christian McCaffrey with the injury, they're saying it's a knee injury. I thought maybe it was just irritation of that Achilles, but they're saying it's a knee injury. That concerns me a lot more than if it was the Achilles. Because a knee injury, non-contact in that way, is usually pretty serious, especially for a high-functioning, high-caliber athlete like he is. Oh, it's hard to find any positives from that. They go to play the Bears next week, and the Bears aren't a bad team. Obviously, they just fired Eberflus and just elevated Thomas Brown, from to coordinator and now to head coach on an interim basis, and they're said to be giving him a real true look at it, but. I don't know. I don't really know what Kyle Shanahan says to his team after this. I know how he is in these meetings and how honest he is and how serious he takes this game and how serious he takes, these losses. And he's going to take it hardest. This is going to be a very, 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 I can't say it enough, very long flight from Buffalo back to San Francisco for this team. They'll have to land in San Francisco instead of San Jose because San Jose Airport doesn't stay open that late. So not only will you have the long flight, but you'll have the long drive. And Mitchell, this is coming from experience. I tell you what, this is probably the worst flight and drive that they'll have outside of the Miami Super Bowl. That one probably was not a fun ride at all either. But this one's going to hurt. And This is going to be tough questions later on in the season. What are you going to do with some of these guys? You start wondering, whose salary you eat next year, who they're moving on from. That's when this comes in, who you draft in, what draft position you're going to have. I don't think they're going to tank the season by any means, but do you try to get, if Christian McCaffrey injury, hopefully, fingers crossed, isn't serious, do you still play him, or do you just say, you know, mail it in, settle him down. Hey, we'll see you next year. When you're healthy and you're 100%, let's get ready for next season and take another shot at it, because this one seems like it's already in the books. You're going to have to pay Brock Purdy this offseason, and you got to figure out what that looks like. So there's so many questions that this kind of game, this kind of beating really, really put into perspective for this team and for this fan base who have had a tremendous amount of success over the last 6 years. They've been in the NFC Championship, been in multiple Super Bowls, and this season it just wasn't their year. The ball didn't bounce their way when they needed to have it. There was 3 or 4 games there where they could have had the ball bounce their way. The record would be different, the mindset would be different, and the approach would be different down the stretch. But unfortunately, that's not how it happened. That's not how it happened. So, obviously they're going to have to do some inventory on this team, on this coaching staff, see what they're going to do going forward. But it's just unfortunate. Every season you're not going to make the Super Bowl. Every season you're not going to make the playoffs. But when you have as talented of a team as this, it's just really disappointing when it doesn't happen. And then you have games that just end in this fashion. These aren't just losses. Your Green Bay beat you bad, and Buffalo just whooped you pretty bad. And it's hard to coach off this tape.
Well, Richard, I'm going to ask a tough question, and it pertains to the future of the San Francisco 49ers. It's been gut punch after gut punch after gut punch this season between the tight losses and the injuries to key players. Now we see CMC's injury. Now the looming questions of having to pay Brock Purdy and what that does to salary cap space. We've talked about this championship window for the last 6-7 years. Do you think this game will be the dagger and the San Francisco 49ers future championship aspirations in terms of this talent base that they have in-house right now, these key role players that are all having to get paid now?
No, I don't know if this is going to be the end of it. It's going to be a real, real challenge going forward, and it's going to be up to the scouting department and the front office, in a front office in which they've lost a lot of people. They've lost Adam Peters, they've lost Martin Mayhew, they've lost so many guys to become GMs other places, and that's really cool when you think about it. You're like, hey man, look at this, what a franchise. How great do you have to be to lose talent to be GMs elsewhere, but it also affects the quality of the staff that you have, and they've elevated and they've tried to continue that. And this is going to be their greatest challenge this year, to find some young guys to fill those gaps. You're going to have to find some young offensive linemen that have to play at a really high level. They found the right guard that in Purdy, I think that's going to be around for a while, but you're going to have to find likely another center. I'm not sure Brendel is the answer long term. You're probably going to have to find another young left guard to compete at that spot. You're going to have to find heir apparent for Trent Williams whenever he decides to retire and hang it up. And that person will probably likely compete for the right tackle spot until Trent Williams calls it a career. But I think that's what it's going to have to be. I don't think the window's closed. I think this is too talented of a team, and I know everybody wants to just say either you're Super Bowl or bust, or you're not Super Bowl. But there's too much talent on this team to be that way. Now they do need to find more depth. They need to find more below the superstars in order for this team to be more consistent, because they're so top heavy. When you lose a guy or two, it just falls off the rails so fast on both sides of the football. If you lose Christian McCaffrey, you lost him for a while. You found Jordan Mason, so that kind of helped out, and that was fine. But then you lose Brandon Ayuk, and then you lose a huge part of your offense pushing the ball down the field. Now it looks like you don't understand how to push the ball downfield. Who's going to push that spot? When you lose Trent Williams, and your whole offensive line looks different. Obviously, in this game, they didn't get a ton of pressure on them, but it's because nobody can move. But in the Green Bay game, there's a ton of pressure on Brock Purdy. Every game this season outside of this game, there's been a ton of pressure on Brock Purdy from the interior offensive line and from that right tackle spot. So I think they're going to have to show that they can develop and draft more depth in order for this team to get back to where they need to be next season. But I don't think it's over.
Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills a little bit. I know their record is not the best in the AFC, but if you're looking at the eye test, I think the Buffalo Bills are the class of the AFC right now. They are surprising a lot of folks. What do you think the Bills' chances are here? Do you view them as the top team in the AFC? I know your power ranks suggest otherwise, but I mean, just looking at games like this, how do you not put them above KC at this point?
Yeah, and for that, let me look at something, Mitchell, because I want to make sure I'm telling everybody the complete gospel about this. Yeah. So, all right, depending on how their season shakes out, they could be playing the Denver Broncos or the Buffalo Bills or the Baltimore Ravens if the season ended today. Do I think they could win that game in the wild card? Potentially. Sure. I'd say yes. How about that? I'd say yes. But then you go and you potentially have to play a Pittsburgh team. Am I totally confident that they bully a Pittsburgh team with T.J. Watt and these boys and Cam Hayward playing some of the best football of his life? Russell Wilson, if he plays like he did last week, can they go to Buffalo and get a win? Under less than ideal conditions? Maybe. Maybe. I wouldn't feel. I don't. I want Buffalo. They played really good, incredible football, but I've seen that. I've seen this movie before. So when it comes to certain teams, I fully respect what I'm seeing on tape and what they're doing, and every season's different. I understand that you got to look at everything in that scope, but I have seen them in the playoffs, and they repeatedly find a way to lose to Patrick Mahomes and the boys. They find a way to underwhelm in a game they should not underwhelm when they lose to teams they shouldn't lose to. So until that changes, I no, no. Kansas City is the class of the division, and I don't care if they're getting lucky or good or slipping by or stumbling through. They're 11-1. They're back-to-back Super Bowl champs, and until they're not, I mean, the San Francisco 49ers are showing you how difficult it is to come back, albeit they lost the Super Bowl in overtime, but it has an effect on you. Playing that deep into the season every year, win, lose, or draw, it has a toll on you. It takes a toll on your body, your mind, your psyche, everything, your family. And so they're going to try to do it again. And if you tell me Buffalo has to go to Kansas City, I watched Kansas City go to Buffalo last year and went get the win. So it's hard for me to with a straight face say, man, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs when I've never seen it happen in the playoffs.
I get you. I mean, Buffalo was able to take care of them the other week. It seems like the tides might have turned a little bit. Josh Allen also, before we leave this game, is putting on an MVP caliber season. It doesn't seem like much can stop this guy. Do you think that Josh Allen deserves MVP at this point?
I just don't think that, like I always say, and people get upset with me, the numbers aren't there. The numbers aren't there for Josh Allen. He's going to be. He's not even top 5 in touchdown passes. I don't think he's not top 5 in yards. He's not top 5 in any of the categories that you have to be an MVP. And obviously, guys that are top, like Joe Burrow, he's not going to get consideration. His team isn't going to be in it. He'll probably have the best numbers going away. Geno Smith leading the league or tied for the league lead or up there in passing yards. The Seattle Seahawks, I don't know if they'll be high enough for him to get consideration. And then the touchdown passes and things like that aren't there for him. So Lamar Jackson has the touchdown passes, has the interceptions, but the Baltimore Ravens aren't playing at the level they were earlier in the season, or I'd say it'd be his going away. The numbers say it should be his going away, but that's when it gets wonky because if the that's when somebody like Saquon Barkley could mess around and stumble into a win because how well the Philadelphia Eagles are playing late in the season. He's having tremendously impactful games. His numbers are going to be there. He's going to lead the league in rushing. He's going to have a silly amount of all-purpose yards. He's going to have a silly amount of touchdowns, even with Jalen Hurts taking away some of his touchdowns with the tush push from the 1-yard line. I think he's lost 3 or 4 touchdowns from that alone. So that's where I don't know if Buffalo as a 2-3 seed with the numbers that Josh Allen, unless they get substantially better over the next couple games, where they could give it to him. But I mean, like I said this last year about Lamar Jackson, and they gave it to him. I said the touchdown passes aren't there, the numbers aren't there. Buffalo Bills were, but Baltimore was clearly the best team in football at the time. And record said that their defense was playing well. it was hard to dispute that. So maybe if the Buffalo Bills end up the number 1 seed, then the numbers won't matter, and he's the quarterback on the best team in the AFC, then they'll give it to him. But right now, if the Eagles are the 1 seed and Buffalo's the 1 seed, I think you got to give it to Saquon.